scientific methodology as a way to learn about things is always limited by the single variable problem, by the limitations of your data, and by the quality of your logic. How do you interpret what this data means? How do you weigh those? But that's okay, because philosophy also has its limits. It's limited by the assumptions, it's limited by the quality of the logic, and it's limited by the fact that it itself is not internally self-testing. It doesn't reveal its own errors. Science will reveal its own errors. You keep doing science and enough people do it, and it will show which of those conclusions represent bad data and which of those conclusions actually represent the difference in outcome because of the difference in variable. So those are epistemological questions on the limits of things. But we are not seeing a huge discussion on the value of science and value of philosophy. We're seeing a huge discussion on the values of pseudoscience in marketing. That's what we're talking about in medicine and chiropractic and biology.
But we're also seeing the lack of science, or at least that's being promoted, that there's a lack of science.
Used as a stick to beat
right.
us with, yep.
But in what you're telling us is it's almost impossible to really do something that's going to be considered valid. And we're always criticized that there is not enough evidence-based research in the chiropractic profession. How do we overcome that? Is that something to overcome, or is that a losing battle as well?
No, it's not a losing battle. The problem is you have a group of people that have been doing scientific research, and good scientific research, including dealing with and wrestling with the single variable problem and the objectivity problem, for a long time, as concerns how diseases are described and what causes diseases, criticizing a group of people who are saying, well, we want to research health, but we haven't spent the last 500 years dealing with the multivariate problem and the subjectivity problem, or lack of objectivity, right? Asking questions about health. So it's nothing more than a cheap shot. Right. Actually, what the medical profession should keep saying is, health is a really interesting topic. We haven't gotten around to research it. We would love to give you all the support we possibly could for you guys to research it. But what they keep saying instead is, quit wasting your time researching health, because the only real medical issue is, the real health issue is, what diseases can you treat or prevent?
Right. And there's no proof that you're preventing anything.
And not only have they beaten us over the head because there's no proof that we're treating anything yet.
Preventing anything.
But they're saying, and you can't prove that you can prevent something. Well, in fact, science doesn't prove anything. Science is only a way to disprove hypotheses until whatever's left is what you accept until another experiment modifies knowledge. So that's all not about the epistemologies of learning things scientifically or philosophically. That's all about marketing by saying medicine is scientific, but chiropractic isn't.
So what you're telling me, tell me if I'm right to make this conclusion, that from what I'm gathering, from what you're telling me, is that science is used almost as a resource to make an argument.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what's going on. And that's why a lot of, more and more of the science we're doing is getting to be less and less high quality. Because we're so intent to make changes that we're willing to make changes on the basis of less and less certain knowledge. This whole phenomenon where we now know so much that the amount of knowledge we have doubles every 5 years, and now it's double every 5 minutes, and now we're making all kinds of changes. Well, the fact is that wisdom, that taking in the knowledge that we're gaining and integrating it into well-formulated systems that give us values, the fact is, let me give you a perfect example. Yes, we now know enough about how DNA works as a chemical molecule that pretty soon we're in the middle of learning how to manipulate it. And will we have the power to manipulate DNA? Yeah, we do right now. So what? Do we know enough to decide how we want to manipulate it? No, not at all. Not even a clue. Because we're making certain assumptions, which are philosophical, about what genetic values are, so that we live in a culture that as soon as we opened it up so that they could manipulate the gender of their children, they all wanted to have boys because boys are the predominant patronymic culture. It's called China. Right now, China is getting a predominance of male population because they opened it up when they said you can only have one child, and used abortion because people start using abortion to decide which child they're going to have. So genetic knowledge is wonderful, but without a philosophy of what the role genetics plays in your future, genetic knowledge has just the potential to be total catastrophe, because we have lots of knowledge, but we don't have any philosophic framework in which to decide, in which to decide how to use that knowledge. So we're getting to the point where it's almost become the value is, do I have the knowledge, when in fact the real value is, do I even know what I want to do with that knowledge? What value do I want to create with that knowledge? We can decide. Another example, we can decide we want to lower the raise the miles per gallon on individual vehicles to drive ourselves around the country in our own little cars, and make more and more cars for fewer and fewer people to move around, and still have never answered the question whether it wouldn't be better to move people around en masse, because it's way more efficient. You can get your people miles per gallon, cut them in half, a third, a fifth, a tenth, just by carting people around in trains, instead of having everybody cart down in exactly down the same road in 300 cars, have them go down in one train. But that's a difference in philosophy of transportation, not the science of how to get energy out of the gasoline molecule. And we do that in biology at the same time. Right? Chiropractic is not a different way to approach the science of human biology. It's a different way to value the knowledge, to use the knowledge that we do have.